motors?
all of a sudden, you could buy a refrigerator. And then they started making them cheaper because if you used to run a razor, it lasted your lifetime. So then they developed disposables. Yeah. That makes sense.
How you doing?
So we've been really tight in here, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But you know, in the 1800s, all these trees didn't exist. It was all prairie, so it looks around.
That's true.
So wood was rationed, so you couldn't just have as much wood
There was,
as.
even here, there wasn't a lot of blood. The trees.
So you could see up and down the rivers, days are
How you doing?
up and down the rivers, you know, because there's no trees. Now you look, you're like, is there a river down there?
Yeah, I didn't realize, I thought, I've always seen Minnesota as a place of trees, I've always associated.
All right, go ahead.
Good afternoon. So this is a family quarters here at Fort Snelling. The soldiers, they can bring their wives, their children here to the fort. Their wives just have to have a job. So there's 3 opportunities for women out here. You can be a laundress, doing the soldiers' laundry, wearing white uniforms. You can be the matron of the hospital, which is the laundress at the hospital, or a domestic servant. So you can imagine that this space here was actually down by the river.
Huh.
Because there's not very a lot of water up here, and you need lots of water to do laundry, so they're going to set up all their technology right on the banks of the river and just live down there and make their lives a lot easier. So here there's a lot of things on the walls, there's a lot of curtains on the windows, so having your family here, you have privileges. The soldier squadron is going to be pretty slim for extra
Yeah.
furniture.
Great.
So you're cooking in here, living, everything, living space with another family.
Yeah, tight.
Tight quarters.
Yeah. There's a little washboard.
Folks, yeah, so those are some of the laundry tools.
Mm-hmm.
Something you could make, you would make here at the fort. Come on in, this is
Ironing board.
where the families would have been living. It's just like this. Isn't that great? So here's some toys. So if you, yeah, look at all these. So if you were living here in the 1800s and you were part of the soldier's family, you were going to school. School was only for officers' children. So you'd be working alongside your mothers doing all the chores, laundry, maybe helping watch younger children, but you'd also have time to play. So you see, these are all toys you can make, like, that something that broke. So there's all sorts of fun toys. And here's some checkers. Want to try some out? Yeah, want to try it? So you could practice your sewing and make it all. Not that you have a lot of time for fun and games, but there's maybe a little bit. That one's hard because it's so small. This one's easy.
This one's hard.
They're both hard, yes. Switch. So if you kind of do like a gentle,
Okay. That's got it out.
So who gets the top one?
probably
Not
the
it.
children.
Oh, the children.
So there's 2 families in here.
Right.
So everyone shares beds.
Wow.
So a couple of your children, if you have
Oh, I
maybe a
did it.
mattress on the floor, maybe a cradle. We're not sure how many children were here. They didn't write that down.
I did it. See?
Nice job, Soph.
You did it? Hey, that's hard. That's tricky.
Wow. That's tight quarters.
So it's normal to share beds.
Yeah.
And that's just what you grew up doing. It's just the norm. If you go to an inn and you're going to spend the night, you rent bed space. So you're not getting like a whole room to yourself. So then you and a stranger.
It's like a hostel.
Pretty much. Except you're in the same bed.
Oh, so you're getting married to a stranger, but not.
Oh, Soph, I love you.
So their idea of space is a lot different.
Yes. I just like think that 2 people or more in this bed would be
I'm satisfied.
tight. Nice job. Here's a game we know how to play.
There's like no play space. Yeah.
You can make this, right? Just some wood, some paint. Pretty easy one. Any questions about anything you see in here? Now, if you look at this hearth, have you folks been to the commanding officer's house yet?
No.
Yeah.
Not yet. So if you haven't, you know how big it is, right?
Mhm.
That is a huge hearth. So this hearth is for 2 families. You can look at this crane here. So you cook your food over here. And I can pull it out, do what I need to do, but this crane is so small for 2 families. So when you go to the commander's house, keep the size, it's like, not so big compared to the one over there, which is just massive. So you can see the class difference there. And that they have a servant, of course, or an enslaved person cooking for them.
Question, how did they play dollhouse with dolls that big and a dollhouse that strong?
So that is the officer's quarters.
Yeah, I don't think that's
So there used to be a whole set of the forts, and you could like build them up like a block set of other pieces must be missing somewhere.
What's that?
That is a game. It's called braces.
Okay.
And here's another thing that you could make. So this is an embroidery hoop, and you take two sticks, and you basically get ready to catch it. You ready?
Whoa, okay.
So you toss it back and forth, and you catch it. You can be graceful while you do this.
You're supposed to catch it with the sticks. And then
Any
send it
way
back
you
with
can
the
do
sticks.
so being graceful. So just like,
Let's keep practicing. Being graceful is super important.
so yeah, another game that's easy to do.
Yeah.
Cool. Salted beef or pork, some vinegar, and then a pound of bread like this big. So if you're a child, you'd probably get a half ration. So how do you eat that kind of meat? You just soak it, because it's going to be super salty, because it comes in like a brine, which is really gross. So what you do is you use your crane here, and you make a stew. So you just put everything in the pot. So it's kind of like a crock pot, and then you just stick it over the fire, and it'll do its thing. And since the women are really busy, they can go do what they need to do. Maybe stir this here and there, and that's it.
So the question was, do we think that they cook for everyone? Did they?
So they probably cook for themselves, maybe.
For themselves.
Yeah, so maybe a pot for both. I mean, we don't know those super specific details, but you can imagine they would
Yeah, they
work
each
together
other.
if they're sharing.
And eating the same
All
thing.
right,
Yeah.
right
Day after
here.
day after day.
No, there would have been gardens too. but
Oh,
that's
for the
seasonal.
summer, okay.
Is this the idea of a clarinet?
That is a.
I think it's cool, isn't it?
Not what I expected.
Not a flute, but close.
Why don't they still make these?
So it's just a little
They kind of do.
entertainment.
It was very entertaining.
Thank you.
I like it.
So that's my mending.
What are the big sticks?
Good afternoon, everyone. We are going to
Wash your
begin our infantry and artillery demonstrations here at historic Fort Snelling at Pedote in just a minute. So please make your way over to the porch where we're all at, sitting down. Thank you. So you just heard the assembly call, which means our squad is going to assemble. Now they're going to go march on over to that 6-pound field piece, which is what we call the cannon out there. Now it's called 6-pound field piece because the solid shot that it would fire would weigh 6 pounds. Field piece comes from that big carriage that it's on. You see those big wheels? Make it easy to roll that cannon over long distances and across tough terrain. You'll notice the uniforms they're wearing are the simple undyed cotton of the summer work uniform. And they are going to stack their muskets here in a nice pyramid to keep the locks from getting dirty on the ground or coating themselves with dew from the grass. Either of which would make these much less reliable firearms. So our staff is going to fall in on the piece over there, and then they are going to go through a couple of safety steps to make sure that it is safe to fire. See the trail spikes going down, those would be used to move the cannon. We will use them to move the cannon a little bit later today. Now you'll notice, staff dressed as a soldier across from us is spinning out the sponge. First step to securing this piece is to send a long corkscrew down the barrel. That's called a worm. The idea is to pull out any remnants of a previous firing. Then, while that dampened sponge goes down the barrel, the chief of the piece holds a thumb stall over the touch hole. That creates a vacuum that'll extinguish any embers that might still be smoldering down there. Now they are going to load the charge into the cannon. The other side of that sponge rammer has a ramming block. They're going to use that to seat the charge right into the breech of the cannon. Now, for safety's sake, I'd like everybody to stay behind the stone drainage ditch that circles the parade ground. Thank you very much. Now, the chief of the piece is going to take a priming wire. That's a long piece of wire. He's going to poke a hole in the charge. Then he's going to take a cartridge full of black powder and use that to salt the piece. He's basically pouring a column of black powder from the top of the piece down to the charge itself through the touch hole. And that is one type of fuse that they could use. Now, when the chief of the piece raises his hand in sort of a half-touchdown symbol, that's the sign to fire. So we'll see our staff across from him take his two staffs, and now is a good time to plug your ears. So you notice he's got the slow match in one hand, and then he touched that to the quick match in the other hand. We use quick match, they would have used port fire. And basically reaches over the top with that quick match and uses that to set off the cannon. Now they're going through those same safety steps to make sure that everything is extinguished down the barrel. And once they place the tampion back in the end of the cannon, we know that it is safe. So while we are demonstrating European tactics of warfare, it is important to note there are also Dakota outside the walls of the fort, and traditional Dakota warfare is a little bit different. While European-style armies are all practicing their marching and demonstrating their superior firepower to one another and their superior drilling, the fact that they have practiced more is typically the difference between European-style armies. The Dakota's traditional warfare is more connected to individual bravery. So the act of counting coup, essentially a Dakota warrior has to get close enough to an enemy to strike them with a coup stick with their bare hand or with some sort of weapon, and that demonstrates their bravery. Now they're going to fall into a line. So European-style line tactics, you'll notice they're all marching close together. You have to imagine 25 soldiers with another row of 25 behind them, as opposed to the 4 that we have on staff today. So the wheel maneuver allows you to change what direction that line is facing. You'll notice on their left hip they have a bayonet scabbard. On the right hip they have a cartridge box. With flank maneuvers, they can turn that front into a column, and then they can turn that column gradually along turns if you're marching through a passage. But it's important for them to be able to quickly return to that front, because the front is the actual weapon of the sergeant. Now, the oblique step allows them to shift diagonally across the field. And there's another wheel, close up. And here we'll see another flank maneuver. An on-right by file in the line allows the sergeant to peel off the soldiers one by one, returning them to their original positions. Very important if they had been sized appropriately, which was how the Army was determining their units. You come talk to me if you're curious about any of these tactics and why they're using them. So, now our NCO is going to go through a quick inspection of the firearms, make sure they are ready to fire. You hear that ting? That is the ramrod striking the breech of the barrel. That means there's nothing down the barrel, so the musket is safe. The other things he's checking, he's making sure that the flint is nice and sharp and it is well aligned in the lock. And he may also choose to do a quick inspection, make sure that the uniforms are not torn, that they have all of their buttons buttoned, and that their brass is nice and shiny. Now we're going to go through the manual of arms, which are just different ways of carrying the musket. Everything goes from the shoulder. Support arms just uses different muscles. It's basically the same as the shoulder carry, but it gives your arm a little break. Which is important because that is a 9 or 10 pound musket, depending on whether you've got the bayonet on. Arm support is how you would run carrying the musket or transport prisoners anytime you need a really good hold with two hands. Trail arms is how you get that musket down out of the sky. You get the bayonet out from tangling up in low-hanging trees. And this is how you salute when under arms. So they would have to salute the national colors, visiting dignitaries, officers, that sort of thing. These are socket bayonets, so you can fire the musket with the bayonet on or off, but they are quickly removed with a twist of the wrist. Secure arms is how you carry the musket when it is raining. You'll notice they tuck the lock up under the armpit, and the angle of the barrel being pointed down makes it less likely to fill up with water. And as quickly as they are removed, those socket bayonets can be reaffixed to the end of the muskets. Now, charge bayonets is at this time mostly a defensive maneuver. You have to imagine, again, a line of soldiers behind them, so you've got two rows of pointy knives. It's a big hedge wall. And that's essentially used to deter cavalry charges, because most horses aren't going to run into a wall of knives. Now they are going to demonstrate the loading and firing of these flintlock muskets. The U.S. Army expected them to be able to load and fire in under 20 seconds, which is the same rate of fire as that cannon, right? These 12 steps would be a training system. Basically, you have to open the pan, pull the cartridge out from your cartridge box, tear it open with your teeth because they don't have a third hand, right? And then pour a little bit of that black powder into the pan. You have to close the pan before you cast about so you don't lose the powder in the priming. Then you pour the rest of that powder down into the breech. You have to use the ramrod to make sure it sits all the way down there. Very important to put your ramrod back, because if you don't put your ramrod back and then you pull the trigger, you sent very important part of reloading very far away from yourself. Now would be a good time to plug your ears. All right, now in most battle situations, they would not be calling out each of these steps. They would simply call loading in quickest of time, and then wait until they saw that everyone was back at shoulder arms before they would call fire, or ready, aim, fire. So ready, aim, fire are the three commands you're still going to hear. So now is a good time to plug your ears again. That was a nice volley. So what they're looking for is the sound of one musket going off. They don't want to hear popcorn sounds. Now our NCO is just going to go through a very quick inspection, make sure that all of these muskets went off and they're safe. I heard 3 pings, so we should be good. All right, that concludes our infantry and artillery demonstrations here at historic Fort Snelling at the Dote. Thank you so much for coming out, folks. Now we're going to have a little bit of a participation drill for anybody who wants to do a little bit of marching with us. You can feel free to come on down, put your toes on the grass and your heels on the gravel, and we will talk through why they were walking like this. Thank you so much, everybody. If you're curious about ammunition that they were firing out of the cannon, you can come talk to me. Curious about the tactics, you can come talk to me or one of these folks who's going to come up and stand on the porch with us. Thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day here at historic Fort Snelling at the Dote.
That was so cool. Sweet.